This is the Eye for an Eye channel. Welcome to today's show. It is important that people hear this. I know that I said I am going to refrain from covering the topic of everything that's going on in the land of bagels. And if you don't know what the land of bagels is, well, just think for a second of what's going on over in the Middle East and all the stuff and with whose land it is and the biblical condemnation, everything going on, okay? And then where you say, well, what is bagel? Well, I don't get it. You just picked that out of your hat. Well, I mean, who created bagels, right? Okay, so let's just put them together so you understand what I'm saying. Now, I have to use that term because, of course, you will get strikes for being a enemy against humanity if you use the actual wording here. But it's very important that I cover this topic because it's a story that's not going to make the mainstream news. And it's exactly what I've been telling everybody that's really going on, where the people need to band together and realize that World War III is civilians versus globalists and the globalist military. And everything that we think has been funded to protect us around the world, around the earth, the civilians, has been put in place to enslave us. That's exactly what's happening, and that's a fact. And it's happening right now, right before our eyes. We're seeing militaries turn on civilians. So everything going on over there, it's really important because an actual bagel civilian has come forward and said that the bagel military were the ones who were shooting and killing people, aka Mossad. Now, before I get into the story in detail, if you're not familiar with the libel, I'm going to say the word backwards. Libel, blood, libel, put it together, okay? If you've never heard of it before, you need to become familiar because I was just did a video on the website, Uprising Revival, that everybody should see. I used to have a video on the topic. Of course, it's long scrubbed off the internet, even though I'm a new YouTuber. And it's a very important topic because now that we see people who are more awake to everything going on in regards to stuff with children, in regards to that Chrome thing, not Google Chrome, the other one, like Adrenaline, okay? People become aware of this stuff, but they're not looking in the right spot because the books I've been mentioning and talking about that these specific people follow, all of those types of things that people are becoming aware of, trace to them. So isn't it convenient that right now all the Christians, all the people who are awake are supporting these people because they're not interpreting the Bible correctly? It's very dangerous. And if you know about this thing, because they're bringing attention to it again because they want to make sure that nobody starts looking into it further right now, because they'll realize who's behind everything and what this is all about. So they're bringing attention to it again. I cover that on the website, in interviews over there with everything going on, this libel. And they're trying to deflect off of it and make sure you never ask questions about it. So that video is available on the website, Uprising Revival, and I recommend everybody get aware of what's going on over there because our futures depend on it. This World War III has been in the blueprints for a long time, and it's a specific group of people who identify as a specific religion of people who they are not who they claim to be, who are the ones who are behind everything, all the depravity, all the wars, all of it. And this has been going on over and over again. And they've been protected because of this Semitic thing that they've created so you can't ask questions about them and you'll be imprisoned if you do. So here's the story. Again, remember, bagels who they are when I reference this. And I'm talking about civilians because remember, in their teachings, there are certain bagels who are not necessarily what you call fake bagels, but there's bagels who do not believe in the books that these people follow. There's almost like two subdivisions of these people, okay? And they're looking to annihilate their own because they don't follow the specific books that they follow. So here's the story, which it's a story because a woman came out and was interviewed about it, and they're trying to bury this story, but I'll make sure it has legs. But again, I can only use my logo on the screen because if the algorithm picks up the article, the channel will be booted, okay? So Bagel civilians were shot and executed by Bagel's own forces during false flag hummus the food attacks, claims a survivor who happened to be a bagel. A female bagel who says she survived the October 7th hummus raid told the Bagel State Radio in a now censored interview that the true culprits in the mass slaughtering were the Bagel Defense Forces. Now, the Bagel Defense Forces, this is how God works sometimes. I just stumbled upon their YouTube channel and I started, when I started covering this topic, I was like, well, okay, I guess this is their, like what they call their operation forces over there, et cetera, et cetera. And they have some of the worst acting and some of the biggest propaganda we'll ever see in the history of humanity up on their YouTube channel. And actually, that's what happened to my channel yesterday, was uploading content from their channel because they don't want to do video commentary around what they're actually showing because it's so unbelievable. So what a coincidence that these people who are flaunting themselves on YouTube are the ones behind the slaughtering. But that's not a surprise, because this is what I've been saying from the get-go. But I mean, conveniently, it's this specific group, right? Because we're all talking about the Mossad, okay, who also controls Hamas and the IDF soldiers. So they all work together. But God's always revealing this stuff to us, and I felt drawn to cover that topic. And now we're hearing this woman is saying that it was actually that specific branch of the corrupt New World Order government, the Bagel Defense Forces, who were behind the slaughtering of their own people. What a surprise, because remember, they're the ones behind the slaughtering of all civilians. So in other words, if you're like, I don't really understand, so they're killing their own, okay, so you have the two people claiming to be at war with each other. They're not really at war with each other. They're at war with all the civilians in that area. So they're going to be killing their own people and slaughtering their own people. They are intel agencies. People are rich. They are funded by the globalists. That's where they get their money. And you don't see stuff like the Civil War where you see them out in a battlefield with cannons or whatever technology, tanks, shooting each other. All you see are buildings being blown up, apartment buildings blown up, hospitals being blown up. This is not war. This is war on civilians. And it's both sides doing it. People are like, why would they do that? Because they hate their people. Don't you see in America, our government couldn't hate the civilians anymore, Republican or Democrat. They're spitting in our faces. And this is what has always been linked back to the bagels, is they're meddling in people's lives. And what are you seeing in America? Because you're seeing them responsible for everything going on, and people are just blaming Democrats. They've meddled in people's lives for centuries. And that's why they've been thrown out. That's why they've had all these things happen to them, because they can't stop meddling in people's lives. Okay? That's all that they tried to do, is get in your home, get in your bedroom. They think what you have is theirs. This is a mindset that they've always had. Don't we see it in our culture in America? Okay? So our government here in America has turned on the people, just like these governments have, because they're all working together against civilians. So, according to the clip, Bagel forces undoubtedly killed innocent Bagel civilians, adding that they eliminated everyone, including the hostages, amid the crossfire. Okay? Sound frightening enough? Oh, well, it is frightening, and it's going to happen here in America. So, goes on to explain that once the fierce battles broke out between the Hamas food and the Bagel Defense Forces, Bagel Defense Force soldiers indiscriminately fired their weapons at both the Hamas people and the Bagel people. There was very, very heavy crossfire, quote, adding that there was even tank shelling. The 44-year-old mother of three, the one that is making these claims, alleges that prior to the arrival of the Bagel Defense Force soldiers, the Palestinian captors treated her and other civilian hostages humanely. In other words, the Hamas people may not be as bad, especially against civilians, as the Bagel government claims. The woman also was actually at the nearby Nova rave, she says, when she fled the scene during the attack and ended up in kibbutz, located along the Lady Gaza-Bagelville border. The interview took place on a radio program hosted by Ari Golan on state broadcaster Khan, with the aforementioned portions of it removed from the official online version. Quote, it may well have been censored due to its explosive nature, one report explains. The woman actually lives in Kabri, a settlement near the border of Lebanon. She saw many terrible things that day, including the death of her partner. The point of the claims, though, is to highlight the variance between what she says actually happened and what the Bagel government claims happened, in an apparent desperate attempt to justify the ethnic cleansing of Lady Gaza. They did not abuse us, says the woman. She says, by the way, she received a bullet in the thigh, presumably from the Bagel soldiers. And she said they treated us humanely, the Hamas people. But that, I mean, they guard us. They gave us something to drink here and there. When they see we are nervous, they calm us down. It was very frightening, but no one treated us violently. Luckily, nothing happened to me like what I heard in the media. Well, you have these intel, these groups working together, okay? You have them working together to do exactly what we're seeing happen. But this is a war waged on civilians, because no military would, if that happened, well, nowadays, of course, we'd see people condone it based on their religious beliefs or based on, and I mean, like, if it happened to Christians in America, the libs would love it. Okay. And vice versa now with Christians or conservatives out there, I should say conservatives, seeing something like that happen to an LGB, they would love it too because everybody has been psychologically just amped up over all the insane chaos that these specific people are causing in our culture, in our society. They've infiltrated it in every sense. They've indoctrinated with the secret societies, all the teachings. We talk about Masonry and all the teachings there going back to Babylon and Egypt. They have this in their books. I've shown videos before when they open up their Bibles that are in their lodges, and you could see all the Egyptian gods, etc. This is what these people actually follow. This is Babylonian teaching, okay, which teaches sacrifice. It teaches all the things that you're seeing trying to be normalized and all the stuff that people think that they're awake to, which I talk about on the website with the libel. It's amazing that so many of these conservatives think that they're awake and they're like, oh, we have to defend them no matter what. They're our greatest ally. They're the greatest threat they really to our democracy, but I mean in reality, because it's not a democracy, they're the greatest threat to Christianity, period. Because all the books, all the stuff you see going on, it comes from their books. And what Christians don't know, because a lot of Christians are going, well, their books might say that, but we're supposed to defend them, even though they don't realize they're not the real people. Their books also talk about the extinction of Christianity and Christians in general. And all their teachings talk about how they were supposed to do these wicked things with youngsters. And they did. And now in today's society, we see this stuff with the Chrome, and everybody's like, oh yeah, okay, we're catching on to these Satanists. Well, who do you think the Satanists are? These people are about set to worship and announce the Antichrist and worship the Antichrist, and people don't even realize who their Messiah is. It's insanity that people don't see this. I mean, get it through your head. Okay, they're not who they claim to be, so stop even showing a little bit of support. Because I'm seeing Christians go, well, we got to support them a little bit. We might not agree with their teachings. We might not agree with what happened to Jesus. They're not the same people. They're not the seed of Abraham, period. So no, you don't have to support them because they're not the apple of God's eye, because they're not who they claim. And the Bible, the blueprint, the book that tells us all this stuff flat out says it. But Christians just flat out ignore it. They are of the synagogue of Satan. They are not who they claim. They never have been who they claimed. And they've had this happen to them throughout history because they've been trying to do this throughout history and they've been caught red-handed over and over. The difference between history and now is that there's this wall they created that if you actually read their books and tell people about it, you're anti this. If you actually call them out on it, it's hate speech. Do you see where all this has come from? Do you see where all this is headed? And guess what? The ultimate goal is to destroy Christianity and to kill Christians. So if you want to support them and you go, well, I'm going to support them because God tells me to support them. And if that means I'm a martyr and I got to lay my life down, you're not laying your life down for God by supporting them and letting them kill you. You're just being an idiot is what you're being. You're just being misinformed. And you're just what the Bible talks about when God says, my people perish for a lack of knowledge, because it's flat out right in front of you. The Bible, this is one of the things that keeps me up at night. I see so many of these people who they go into deep study about the Bible, and that's great, okay? But then they get out of control, right? And that's where I talk about these date settings and the Christians who are new Christians. A lot of them constantly talk about the rapture, and they say it's going to be then and during this feast, etc. And they go on and on and on. And I say, okay, that's what they want to do. That's fine. Who am I to say what they should be into or what they shouldn't be into? But God does not make this complicated for us. People are like, well, the Bible's coded. Is it? It's flat out easy for everyone to understand. Why would God make it difficult for us to understand? And it's so easy for us to understand that God flat out says that there will be in the end times people who claim to be one thing and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. And that one thing, that one word that you can't say is as clear as day. So why are people going, yeah, but I don't know what that really means and who they are and who they are? God's making it utterly as clear as humanly possible for you to get it, that these are those people. It says it flat out. They're going to pretend they are. They're going to say that they're this seed, and they're not. They're of Satan's seed. So you think that it's some type of code? Why would God make it more difficult on his people? That we need to sit here and bicker over things and say, well, it's coded. That's not what it really means. Huh? Does it not really mean that because your mind control is so deep and you can't get out of your mind control? Have they beaten it into your skull that they're victims and God's chosen people? Wouldn't it be one of the greatest deceptions of all time to pull this off? Oh yeah, it is. And it's happening right now. Wouldn't it also be very genius of them? Because think about it, the people they want to kill most, They've convinced everybody that they're the people that not us. They've convinced Christians that they're supposed to support them no matter what. An unbreakable bond. What are the MK Ultra quotes that we've heard? Unbreakable bond, the best ally of Christianity, and vice versa, right? Isn't it ingenious if their ultimate goal is to kill us, that they would walk side by side and pretend to with us so that we give them our unquestionable support for what they're going to do, which is slaughter people and do all this stuff, and then eventually do it to all of us who don't agree with them. And Christians are going to go and side with them over their fellow brothers and sisters in Christ because they're going to go where God told us to. And God did not tell you to. He told you that there's deceivers and liars like their father, the devil. And they're flat out lying to your face. And the fact that there's so much censorship around them should be enough to wake up any Christian. But they're just not smart enough, apparently, to see this because of the people they're following and listening to, the churches that are speaking this. Because, like somebody so wisely pointed out on one of my channels, and a bunch of people have actually, and they've said, well, the reason that they have religious exemption, they're tax exempt, right? What is it? The CO 1257, I don't know, whatever it is, right? The exemption they have of being an actual church and being exempt. Well, one of the rules to become exempt is that you never question this specific place, which is why all the legitimate churches, which are not really legitimate, but they're legitimate to people because they've been considered in the government's eyes as a real church. Well, they only became one because they don't want to pay taxes because nobody really wants to pay. So they became one because they don't have to pay taxes. And then they're told, well, you can't question so-and-so if they'll ever, or we'll take your exemption away. So they don't. And they don't even think to question them. And even if they have the slightest reality of who they are, they won't because they're not allowed to. Me, I can question them. What happens to me? Well, I built a new YouTube channel. I'm a new YouTuber. Whoopsie-doo. And I'm going to continue to do it because it's the most important truth there is. It really is. I've said it for a long time. I haven't talked about it as much over the last couple of years because I've seen what a division it causes, and also because if it's not a front story and it's not on people's mind, it's hard to pull people into caring about it, but now people care again because they're going, all right, this is suspicious. I'm starting to see these things. I'm starting to see the behavior on TV of these people who claim to be victims acting like bullies and saying if we don't support the slaughtering of people that we're, just as bad as them. And don't you see that in America? Because they're controlling the American government and they're controlling the media. So don't you see how Democrats act? Oh, you better let us lap dance your kids in school or you're hateful and you need to go to jail. It's like, oh, what? You see where it comes from or it stems from? Because they're revealing themselves right in front of you. And Christians are ignoring it because they're going, well, I don't agree with how they're acting, but we gotta, God tells us to. No, he doesn't. God would never tell you to support the devil. And that's what you're doing by supporting them. So I cover this article because this is exactly what I've been saying. And they're not going to talk about this stuff when Bagel civilians are coming out and saying they're being shot by their own because the most odd, okay, put the words together. They're running all of it. And all these groups underneath them, like the hummus group of food, they're all working for them. They're the same troops, just in a different uniform. Just like in America, okay? They change outfits and create false flags, whether it's Democrat or conservative. It's the intel groups. It's these three-lettered organizations. Over there, well, it's a six-letter, M-O-S-S-A-D. M-O-S-S-A. Good, it was 6 letters, okay? And all these other groups work under them. That's who funds them. That's who builds their supposed underground tunnels. That's who films the propaganda. Them. They're doing it to their own. This has always been part of the plan. It's been called the Great Bagel Expansion. I covered that as well when I covered the Balfour Declaration. The Great Bagel Expansion Project, which is expanding the entire territory. So it's a straight up annihilation of civilians, a wipeout, okay, of civilians. And then it's going to be blamed on boogeymen. And if you don't agree with what you're hearing and seeing, then you're going to be a criminal too. And they're bullying people into accepting it. It's really unbelievable. So it's civilians versus this specific piece of land is really what it comes down to because they're controlling all the governments. They're controlling the Jesuits. They're controlling everybody. It's frightening. And don't think that Donald Trump or any of these people are going to save you because they showed their true colors too. DeSantis, Trump, they've always shown it. But now people are starting to see it who are awake to this. And people out there with eyes to see and ears to hear know exactly what's going on. Wake up. Join the website if you haven't yet, if you want real truth, uncensored, so you can learn this stuff. This is the most important information you'll ever learn because you'll realize where the deception comes from and what is coming to all of us because it's in their books. Just like the Bible tells us about prophecy, their books tell us about our demise and about the New World Order structure and all the chaos you see going on in the world, which they know and have written that they have to do to bring this in, ushering in of the Antichrist. So the website has uncensored content. I've proven time and time again that they won't let me say it here. That's why on this video, you just see my logo, and that doesn't even mean that this will get around it, but I'll put it up so you can see it, you can hear it, and be aware of it. I thank you for being here. Hope to see you on the website. At the very least, please sub to my backup channel, United Uprising Now, if you haven't yet. Thanks for being here, everybody. God bless all of you, as always, and your families.